Good afternoon, Senor Suave.
Good afternoon, Senor Blanco.
All right, it's now Thursday, 18 December, 4 days after the horror terrorist attack in Sydney's Bondi Beach. And we're going to look at a video shortly of a podcast called Two Worlds Collide. And he's going to offer some commentary on what we're seeing in the political response to the shooting and what actually he sees as having transpired in the lead up to it over the last few years.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack at the moment around this incident. We've got the immigration status of the perps.
Okay.
That's a fiasco. How they came to be in the country. We've got how they came to have a firearms license. We've got how they came to have a firearm. We've got the trip to the Philippines. We've got the most important one, I think, is every single politician coming out and basically blaming anti-Semitism and the far right. Not one person saying that it's anything to do with Islamic terrorism, Islamic extremism. None of the politicians have mentioned that, or not in so many words. They seem to be a bit afraid to say those words.
They do. I've noticed they love to call it anti-Semitism because that brings in...
Well, it's an anti-Semitic attack, so that's like,
sure.
well, the neo-Nazis are the far right, we know they're anti-Semites, so they go well together, don't they? Anti-Semitic and far right. It's like, oh, we can throw that in and that actually conjures up an image.
So what they're seeking to do is not to be seen to be attributing... focused on any particular community, obviously the Muslim community, by calling it Islamic terrorism. If they call it anti-Semitic terrorism, then they're talking more broadly, they're talking radical elements of the Islamic community, but they're also talking radical elements of far-right white nationalist types, being the neo-Nazis, of whom there's probably only 80 total in all of Victoria, maybe another 80 in New South Wales, in my opinion.
Maybe.
But they've been the boogeyman of choice in the political discourse for the last at least 12 or 18 months in Victoria. And anytime anybody brings up sort of concerns about mass migration and housing pressure and infrastructure stress and so forth, it's like, oh, you're a neo-Nazi.
Yep.
It's like, what?
Far right.
So it's a wonderful political distraction. And I guess Albo and others are trying to utilise that same technique of distraction in this instant. Look, and in a sense, there is a concern, there's a real concern that there's going to be undue blame on those much larger elements of the Muslim community who have nothing to do with this and abhor what's happened.
Well, I think it's more a quite obvious attempt to whitewash the whole situation and gaslight people.
Okay.
Because Albo said there was no evidence that they'd been radicalised.
He said that?
Yeah, he said that. You didn't see that at the very start?
I believe it. But...
very start, he said, "Oh no, there was," and then.
Oh, was he saying it's too early to tell?
No,
that sort of vibe?
Well, I don't know. Look, I thought maybe it was fake news at the start, but then I'm pretty sure I saw it confirmed.
Well, as of today, it's pretty clear to every man and his dog that they were radicalised Islamic terrorists, right? Is that what we're given?
The bottom line is that they were from Islamic State, but there's a lot of people that are saying, well, they're not Muslims because Islamic State, doesn't follow the Islam that the majority of Muslims follow.
Well, which is a reasonable comment. Like, it's a play on words, but really what they're saying is that there's a vast majority of people who subscribe to the Islamic religion who have nothing to do, want nothing to do with guys who will do something like this. That's really the message. And whether we call them their Islam true Islam, or the radicals Islam true Islam, and their Islam is some modern Islam, it's, potato, no?
Well, the problem I have with that is that clearly they were Muslims. So, you can't sort of say...
By your definition.
They were Muslims.
That's true. I mean, definition. Yeah, sorry.
It's just,
I'm falling into the black hole.
Just a bottom line that was their religion that they followed.
But
Not all Muslims have the beliefs that they have, but it doesn't make them not Muslims.
Okay. So the
language why not call them what they are?
Okay, but the language is powerful, and it's very unlike me to try and defend Albo, but trying to understand a reasonable explanation of what's going on here is nobody wants to ascribe terroristic intent and motives to someone who happens to be Muslim who's got no fucking interest in this sort of violence. For example, Ahmed al-Ahmed, the dude who risked his life to actually disarm one of the crazy guys.
I think you're being too polite on behalf of the government, though, because I actually think that I think it's kind of insulting to the Muslims.
Okay.
So or a bit insulting to us. So basically, what I think that Albo's reason for using the language that he's using is that if he were to come outright say these were Islamic, radicalized Islamic terrorists, he thinks that the people who turn up to the March for Australia marches, waving Australian flags, would start attacking Muslims on the basis that they think that all Muslims are responsible for this. That's my understanding. Like he's basically implying that he's protecting the Muslim community from these radical far right people, which are just you and I.
The tinderbox is ready to ignite, and he's preventing that,
which is nonsense. Yeah. It's absolute nonsense.
Yeah. That's it. They infantilize the broad community and sort of say, none of you are able to sort of deal with the truth of this situation because you can't think about it clearly and straightforwardly and come up with a constructive understanding and therefore a constructive solution. You're all little children. You can't be trusted with the toys.
Even further than that, he's basically implying that we're all radical nut jobs who would just seek vengeance immediately if he were to utter those words in public, which is ludicrous.
Yeah, okay. I completely agree. I don't like being treated like an idiot by these politicians. And when you complain, they say, oh, well, okay, maybe it's not you, but it's the next guy. It's like, well, that guy just like me, so cut the shit.
Well, the reality is we've had plenty of these attacks. It's not like the first one. You know, remember the guy who stabbed the owner of Pellegrino's?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember anyone going around burning down any mosques after that. No. The Lint Cafe, I don't remember any Muslims being harassed or attacked. There's a history here of these attacks from Islamic radicals. Okay. And never once has the public responded by attacking the Muslim community. Just hasn't happened.
That's a very good point.
So why not just say, look, you know, we got it wrong. There are some radical members of the Islamic community in this country. They're creating these people that we saw today that are going out and shooting. And we need the Muslim community to help us to actually eradicate them from our society. Smoke them out. Smoke them out. You know who they are. They live in your community. They're at your mosque. Just
the Muslim community is
publicly shame them. You know,
Muslim community is Australia is an essential ally in actually solving this problem.
They're
Australians like us.
They're essential.
Together.
And the bottom line is that if Albo's not going to address that fact, what chance have we got? He's just burying it all and going, well, no. Every other Muslim in the country except for these two guys is moderate and peace-loving, and, you know, that's just not true.
Every Muslim I've met, they're intelligent thinking people and thoughtful like anybody else. They don't take offence at the drop of a hat. They're not going to be offended by a discussion.
It's a bit like the theory that, you know, why are you worried about government surveillance unless you've got something to hide? Well, I don't think any Muslim's going to be worried about being, you know, about anyone calling out radical Islam unless they're somehow connected to radical Islam.
All right, maybe. I don't know. I've never quite been comfortable with that nothing to hide phrase.
Oh, no, it's a load of bullshit.
It's a load of bullshit.
But I'm sort of saying this is a similar scenario.
Okay. I always say to those people, okay, well, let me look through your wife's knickers drawer. What has she got to hide? All right, so we see what this fella has to say.
All right.
So we just got some more information that just dropped, which makes the government look 10 times worse than it already is. As per Oz vs. The Agenda, the New South Wales Police Commissioner just came out and said that the father of the two shooters applied for a gun licence back in 2015. It then lapsed because he didn't provide any photo evidence. And then in 2020...
One thing I'm finding really weird about this whole situation is the chronology can't be that complicated. But
Chronology
it seems
of what?
From when the guy applied for his student visa to when he started murdering people. Okay. You know, but it's so convoluted, and we've had so much different information about the type of visas they were on, about when they arrived, about when they applied for the gun license, about the type of passports that they were using to travel on. It's like, fuck, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
To be fair, we're 4 days in, and the first 48 hours is always chaos.
Well, but they're drip feeding all this different, like, this bloke, what he's talking about now, this is the first time I've heard of any of this.
Okay.
Originally, the story was that he has lived here since 2019. He got his gun license 10 years ago legally, and he's had 6 firearms. Now, what this bloke's saying is completely contradicting that.
Okay, but to some extent, we've got to understand the process of gathering information and sharing it with the public takes time. Like, for example, for the first 24 hours, the perps were Pakistanis, and you sort of look at it and think, well, the only reason that was delivered to us as so-called early stage unverified fact was that they had names which were obviously of that part of the world.
Yeah, I don't even know where they got information from, to be honest.
But what's his name? Akram. You know, we all know Wasm Akram.
Oh, Wasm Akram, yeah.
Right. So I was like, all right, well, Akram is from Pakistan.
Yeah.
And
to be fair, he's probably from like a town in India that's right on the border of Pakistan, because it's a Muslim community. It's not a
Okay.
yeah, he's
okay.
He's probably more Pakistani than he is Indian. Just happened to be on that side of the border when they decided to create a new country.
More Pakistani than Indian. What does that mean?
Well, look, they were all the same people
Yeah.
under the British Empire,
Yeah.
and then when they asked to have a separate state,
Yeah.
that was just an arbitrary line.
Yeah.
You know, so obviously there were people from Pakistan living in the border area in India that probably wanted to be in Pakistan but just didn't want to move.
Well, I think there are more Muslim people in India than there are in Pakistan.
Okay,
I need to fact check that.
Well, just given the numbers, yeah, that probably makes sense.
I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to look that up.
So we've just gone to Google AI, which, you know, with this sort of stuff, you can trust it. Most of the other stuff, it's a bit sort of lefty and woke. It's basically said Pakistan, approximately 230 to 241 million. India, approximately 200 to 215 million. So India actually holds the 3rd largest Muslim population and the largest Muslim minority community globally. Okay. So you were almost right.
So it's Indonesia, Pakistan, India.
Yeah.
All right, back to the video.
Back to the video.
So he's just told us that he got his gun license in 2015, or he tried to.
Yeah, so we're going through a different timeline now. It's all like, as I say, I'm so confused about the whole thing. But this bloke, I think, he's got the latest facts. So let's have a listen to what he says.
He applies again. Then it gets approved in 2023 after his son had been on the ASIO watch list since 2019. So let me connect the dots for every single person so you can understand just how much of a piece of shit Anthony Albanese really is. Back
True that.
2024, Anthony Albanese downgraded our national security. He told the head of ASIO that they are no longer needed in national cabinet meetings. And then all of a sudden, and like I've been saying, he starts redirecting the AFP to go after Islamophobia, social cohesion, and far-right extremists. Anthony Albanese last night literally said on an interview and reworked this whole thing back to far-right extremism. Is he fucking kidding me? And all while this is happening, division between people have been at all-time highs. The Australian flag gets burnt during protests. We watch the ISIS flag get flown on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And then we watch foreign-born senators say slurs like, "you white people," in Parliament House. And then anyone that spoke up against any of this, well, they just labelled us a racist, a Nazi, a white supremacist, a bigot. And don't get me started about bringing people in to this country that do not align with our values. I've been preaching this for years now. This is where our empathy as a nation has gotten us. Right? And Anthony Albanese's response to all of this.
The interesting thing about that, sort of, when he says people who don't align with our values, you know, I think we instantly think of a large group of people that have come in recent years. But he's right that the government is proactively bringing in people that really are quite radical, i.e. the Gazans and people from Afghanistan.
Radical in what way?
Well, radical as in they're radical Muslims.
But radical...
Well,
hey, radical doesn't... You don't mean they're going to take a gun and start shooting people.
Palestinians, who knows?
Well, I don't know, but... Maybe they are, but I'm saying you can't just presume off the cuff that they are, right?
Okay,
because there's plenty of Palestinians who are anti-Hamas who are just regular schmoes trying to live with their families and get caught up in a horrific war.
Yeah, but how many of those do you think? Look, okay. How about the example that I was telling you when because I didn't realise that in 2000 to 2000 whatever there was like an intifada because remember I told you when I was living in Ireland, I used to constantly see on BBC Northern Ireland that these Palestinians were blowing themselves up at checkpoints, slightly injuring a couple of soldiers, but killing themselves, and it was happening every day.
Yeah,
but there was an actual thing, and then I always used to see reports where the kids were chucking stones at the Israeli soldiers. What do the Israeli soldiers do? They shoot them back. Sometimes they kill the kids, and it's like, oh my God, you've killed a kid. They're kids. They're little kids. That was, 25 years ago? So 25 years ago, these little kids thought it was normal to just go and chuck rocks at Israeli soldiers. Do you think that mentality, where does that lead to 25 years later? I mean, we're not bringing in little kids now, we're bringing in adults.
Well, those kids didn't grow out of it, that's for sure.
Well, if your next door neighbour has just blown up your fucking house, you're not going to just think, oh, let bygones be bygones. You're going to hold animosity towards them.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. When I say radical, I think that they have to be coming from that environment. They have to have views that are not just love thy neighbour.
Yeah, okay. But see, I don't. What I'm taking issue with is the word radical, because the word radicalised to me has a particular meaning. Radicalised means they believe that in martyrdom, they believe in killing infidels, they believe in killing Jews.
Okay, so who knows? How do you screen them for that?
I think this is the biggest problem, and this is what this fellow's saying with his podcast, is that if you bring in a cohort of people, even if you tell us that 99.9% of them, I don't need to give them platitudes and say peace-loving neighbours, but people who would never, in their wildest dreams, ever want to hurt somebody. Even if they have strong views, which one way or the other, they would never actually express those views by shooting someone in the street or blowing someone up, right?
Yeah, the likelihood is low, but
that's the point.
It exists.
But the point is the 0.1% who or less who might do that. How the hell do we screen for that 0.1% out of the 100%? And this fellow on his podcast will say, well, if you can't guarantee me that we can screen for that 0.1%, then we need to say no to the full cohort of 100%, right? And then those with certain political views would say, if you're denying entry to the 99.9% because you can't screen for the 0.1%, A, you're blaming the 99.9% for the actions of a tiny minority, and B, well, that crime rate is less than the crime rate in Australia, therefore you've got to tolerate it because it's
like Sadiq Khan's argument that, if you get stabbed in London, well, that's part of living in a multicultural city, just part of the
he's like, you might get stabbed by an immigrant, you might get stabbed by a native English born, whatever. He's like saying as long as it's statistically sort of comparable, it's okay.
He's saying getting stabbed is just part of living in a big city and
part of the experience.
Just how it rolls. How you roll.
Send a postcard. But the point is, I take the point of view that, you know what, and this is a sort of a border-focused point of view, and this is where we have borders, we're allowed to actually discriminate, call it discern to be more polite, but discriminate, we're allowed to decide who comes in and who doesn't come in. I don't believe we have any particular obligation to let anybody in, anybody at all. Now,
I agree.
We can choose to have a humanitarian intake, a skilled immigration intake, a family unit intake, a student intake. We can choose all that stuff, and there's many reasons to do that, right? But there's no prima facie obligation to let anybody in the first instance. And we have, as the other side of the coin is, we can say no to anybody for any reason. There's no moral question on 0.1% is blamed for the 99% is blamed for the 0.1%.
Just a quick one. How many Afghans do you think we've let into the country in the last 4 years? Not let in, we've actually voluntarily brought them in.
20, 30,000?
How many do you reckon?
20, 30,000?
Yeah, 31,500.
Okay.
Plus another, 7,000 that were offshore. But that's a full stadium at Marvel, on a good day.
But what inherently is the problem with that?
Well, there's a risk factor, surely.
Well, that's the question. Are we saying that in that 31,000, there's a 0.01% that might do something dangerous? I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm saying let's just be very clear about what we're saying, because there's a certain lack of clarity in this whole fucking discussion. Albo doesn't think we have the intelligence or the moral sort of rectitude to grapple with it.
Well, as you say, didn't Donald Trump just say the number we're going to take is 0 because we're not going to tolerate the risk?
Okay, yeah, and look, that's a legitimate point of view, I believe. Other people say no.
But
and it's not a knock against people who are already here, right? People who are here as Australian citizens, that gives a special right that we all have, right? And just because we have a concern about people outside the borders, there's not a knock against someone who's here, right? They're part of the body politic, they're part of society. If there's problems in any ethnic community, brown, Muslim, white, whatever, we deal with it because it's part of our own. Outside of the borders, it's a different story. Does that make sense?
yeah.
I mean, the fucking leftards have called me a radical nut job for saying such a thing. Should we continue?
Yeah.
It's just more laws and more gun laws. You smug prick. You can't even own your own mistakes. The only ones that I've actually heard call this out for what it is Pauline Hanson and Andrew Hastie and Matt Cavanan this morning on my podcast. They're the only 3 politicians I've heard. The rest of them have just ducked for cover because they are fucking cowards. And when you get run by cowards, when you get run by weak people, well, they expose the population to high levels of risk because they cannot make the decisions required to keep us safe. So what then?
Look at those.
What do we do now?
I think he makes a good point. Like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If these politicians aren't being straight with us, I worry that they're not thinking straight inside their own heads in private. Like, it's easy to say, oh, behind closed doors, they're very fucking serious and considering things. But if they're playing politics with it and just trying to cover their ass and...
Oh, it's blatantly obvious that they want to fucking bury this. Albo just wants to, he just wants to ride this storm out by hiding and then just emerge as though nothing happened. That's what I think they're doing. And then just move on with his agenda of mass immigration and crushing anyone that's opposed to it. And he's going to do that through his digital ID. He's going to do it through his monitoring. Now he's going to bring in some new law to monitor social media more tightly under the guise of trying to, identify radicals. This is great for him, really, for his long-term agenda. This is like a win for Albo.
If he can survive the immediate term.
He'll get through it.
Okay.
He'll get through it. And that's what he's playing the game so well. Like, he's literally just bypassing the whole thing. He's just, isn't he? He's completely ignoring the core root of the problem.
Yes, but he needs people to sort of fall into line and believe his half-truths and semi-truths in order to get through the moment. But
it's interesting Wong hasn't said a word. I think it's because everyone knows she's so hardcore pro-Palestine.
Well, she's come out and said a few things that both Albo and Wong in the last 24 hours come back and said, yes, we should have done more, we will do more. Like they've conceded that much.
How can they not concede it though? Seriously.
No, I understand that. So they're playing politics, yes, but they're also at least becoming a little bit straight,
But well, as I say, I need to fact check whether he said they weren't radicalised. But I've seen it presented so many times in so many different types of media that I'm pretty confident that he did say that.
Okay. Well, everybody knows now that they were radicalised, no?
Said that they weren't radicalised and nothing to do with Islam or Muslims. Well, it's nothing to do with Islam. That was his line. No links to Islam.
But then he's just playing cute with definitions of Islam. Like, yeah, he's got nothing to do with Islam that 95% of people follow, and even the other 4%, even if they agree with their Islam, wouldn't shoot people for it. And then there's the 1.1% that might actually do something nasty. So
I think the tricky thing with that is that they all read the same book, and all it is they've decided to interpret it a different way.
yeah,
But, that interpretation is pretty common.
yeah. But as you and I both know, every Muslim person I've ever met has been a decent person in terms of having a civil, friendly friendship with. That's true. Nobody debates that. Albo thinks we don't think that. We all know that's true. And
Well, I think what his attitude is that, like, it's true on your day to day. Like, I lived and worked with Muslims in the UK, and did I tell you that when I'd been living over there, I came back and I got a job, and my boss lived down in, I don't know, Hoppers Crossing or somewhere around there anyway, and he just said, "Oh, you know what? The area's changed so much. I'm so sick of seeing Muhammad walking around my neighbourhood with his silly hat on everywhere I look." And I was like quite shocked by that. I was like, because I just come from a neighbourhood.
Was he a white nationalist?
He was just an Aussie dude. He was an Aussie dude who was my age, who'd grown up in the same place, and it had just changed. And you know, for him, he didn't like it. And I was shocked that he said that, because coming from the part of London that I lived in, our next door neighbours were Muslims. There was a mosque down the road. You know, I saw them everywhere. You know, I didn't think twice. Yeah, if I see a dude dressed up, we didn't have the hardcore ones with the ninja outfits, but you know, I was just used to seeing them. So I kind of was like, oh shit, you know, that's an unusual thing. Yeah, I was a little bit shocked by it, but as I've been back for a little while now, not that long, but long enough to see the change in the country, I'm starting to see his point of view.
And his point of view is?
That his neighbourhood's changed, and it's unrecognisable to him.
But see, herein lies the deep problem that we have, is that if he chose his words wisely and observed that change was occurring, and maybe threw some platitudes in about there's now a new restaurant which is so
kebabs
tasty,
or whatever,
and that there's at the playground he saw yesterday that there's this kid and that kid and white kid and brown kid and they're playing together happily, right? If he framed it that way, then it's acceptable, polite speech. And if you describe it as him being shocked, then all of a sudden people's hairs go up and sort of say, oh, that sounds like the sort of stage 1 hate speech, as in there's a negative connotation, right?
Yeah, it was just interesting. I just reflected on it. I thought, okay. So having lived in London, I was like shocked, but now I'm back in Australia, I kind of think, okay, I kind of understand where the guy's coming from now.
All right, shall we continue?
Yeah. Man, I'm fucking...
Because I'm telling you, they're all telling us to stay calm. Fuck that. We need to turn our attention to the politicians who are making the calls to put us all at risk. That's where our anger needs to go. And if we don't let our voices be heard now, it's just going to be more laws, more restrictions, and less accountability. And then we're going to expose ourselves to more events. That's what's going to happen. What's your thoughts?
Okay. Thank you. Two Worlds Collide podcast. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, obviously the dude's 100% on the money. I also think that he'll get geo-blocked by Karen.
Okay.
Sooner or later.
Just on that note, e-safety is being taken to the High Court by Reddit, who say that the e-safety bill laws, now laws, are actually unconstitutional. So, and I just watched maybe we'll do a video on it. A constitutional lawyer in Australia did a sort of a study of it, and she thinks that the law is actually very vulnerable to being overturned.
Isn't Reddit? There's one of the, I think Reddit, a lot of Indians post on Reddit.
Okay.
I think it's like a real thing for them.
Okay.
They get on there and
different communities
like a forum for them.
Yeah, different communities and cultures gravitate towards different platforms.
Because there's Reddit, there's another one. I'm pretty sure Reddit's the one the Indians like.
Okay. Reddit's huge globally. Like I've not really been on it, but I know some people who, you know, I say, "Are you on X or Twitter?" And they say, "I'm on Reddit." I'm like, "Really?" And they see it's the
Reddit's more about just general information. Like if you want to find out, I don't know, how to use your Samsung remote or that sort of shit.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, or if someone's a scam or whatever. There's a lot of that sort of stuff on Reddit.
Okay.
Anyway, can I share something with you that last night I turned on Netflix and I watched the documentary about the Nuremberg trials, just the first part. And it went into the background of World War One, how World War One came about. And it was talking about the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And so the Austro-Hungarian Empire had German speakers, it had Slavs, it had the Hungarians, all living under one banner.
One empire.
Which you would say is basically multicultural,
Okay.
a multicultural state. And what happened was that each of those groups independently broke away and said, we want our own state.
Yeah.
We want to be with our own people. We want to govern ourselves.
Yeah.
That was over 100 years ago. Now, what's changed that suddenly the modern world thinks that if you get a group of people, I mean, these people were indigenous to those regions. They just happened to come under, they were literally just, they were still living in their own country. But they just didn't want to be part of this
whole
multicultural empire. They wanted their own empire.
Is that a definition of multicultural though? If you take three countries and put them under one central government, but those three units, those three countries are still distinct, autonomous cultural regions or ethnic regions.
Well,
that's kind of like Melbourne right now. We have Tarneet, which is one ethnic group, Deer Park, another ethnic group.
Well, this is my point.
Box Hill, another ethnic group.
This is my point, that if you, just because you bring in a load of people into a country, what do? They automatically group together. They separate. They stay with their own people. They create their own communities. It's just a natural thing to do.
That's what we're seeing here in Australia.
This is multiculturalism.
Well,
and the end game appears that those groups over time are probably just going to want to have their own government, their own, because they have their own culture, their own belief system, their own. So down the line, and this is what we're seeing. This is where we're seeing that the Muslims who want Sharia law, Indians want to celebrate Diwali, and fucking the Pakistanis want to have their Independence Day. And
do you know what? That's really interesting in the sense that, as I said, when in Melbourne where there's concentrations of ethnic groups, they become voting blocks, and all of a sudden you see the major political parties looking for
courting them. Yeah,
well, finding a local representative of that community, of that ethnicity, to be a candidate for that party, so that region will elect their own representative to go to head office, effectively to represent them.
Yeah.
Now, it's a central government that we're all a part of, but to your point, the Austro-Hungarian analogy, the Hungarians send a representative, the Slavs send a representative, the Austrians send a representative to the central. That's what we're doing in Victoria.
Well, and my question to you is, who do you think that those people are representing when they go to Parliament? Do you think they're representing the Australian community, or do you think they're representing the people from their community, and they have their goals and objectives are what's best to progress and further the interests of their own community?
Well, that's a very good question, because traditionally under our system, a representative of a particular electorate is meant to go to Parliament to represent that electorate, right? That's the way it's meant to be.
Yeah.
From its original design. However, over time, we've seen that the representative of that electorate is really what I call a regional sales manager for the party, who goes out, bangs his drum, sells his shit, and then goes back to head office, and the Premier or the Prime Minister says, "Oh, well done, good job, you've sold X bits of pieces today to the electorate." And so there's not really representations, they're just it's just outreach to win votes. If what we're saying transpires with these ethnic communities, I think that the representative of that ethnic community will actually do a better job of sticking to what the original initial job description was back in the day, where you represent the community.
Well, don't you think Fatima Payman's a classic example of that? So she's snuck in the back door through Labor.
Yeah.
And then her agenda has nothing to do with this country. It's about Palestine. She's crossed the floor on her personal beliefs on Palestine and the government.
left the Labor
crossed
Party.
the floor. Yeah, she got sacked for crossing the floor.
Oh, okay.
But she literally, I think she maybe crossed the floor and went and stood with the Greens.
Okay.
And then now she's running as an independent, and she's like a cowboy. So her interests she's all pro-Palestine now. That's all she cares about. And
so she's really a foreign policy sort of single issue representative.
Well, she's now
senator.
talking about having a Muslim party to represent Muslim interests in Australian politics. So she's Trojan horsed her way into the parliament, and now she's got an agenda that's got really nothing to do with the Australian people.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Now, she's got 6 years because she got in with Labor, defected to the crossbench, or thrown out of the party, and she can finish her term. But then next time around, she's got to run under her own party banner or as an independent, which is going to be a much harder sell.
Well, isn't that the reason that she's forming the Muslim party?
Well, no, but then she's got to sell the Muslim party to the electorate, and so she will succeed or fail.
Is she in an electorate though? That's what I'm not sure with her.
I think she's a senator.
Okay, so she's like the whole state.
The whole state will have an opportunity to vote or not vote for her.
Okay.
It's not as though, I don't think WA is a particularly sort of a stronghold for the Muslim vote.
No, you wouldn't think so. But I mean, she did get in. I think.
No, but she got in under the Labor banner.
I think she got in because Labor just wanted a token Muslim, didn't they? Well,
maybe.
I mean, let's call a spade a spade.
Well, you might be right, but I don't know.
If she didn't get in on a political talent, that's for sure. Have you ever heard her come out with any policies at all other than free Palestine and Pauline Hanson's a racist? That's the only shit I've ever heard her say.
No, that's true, but she's young. She's late 20s, 30.
Well, I don't think that's a quality in politics. Like, how about that young girl in South Australia?
21.
Got in and started making it. I said, remember when she got elected? I said, well, what is that girl going to know about governing a country? Like, what could she possibly know?
But this comes back to the point I was raising before, is that a lot of these people that run under the banner of the big parties, they're just regional sales reps. And the party will give them the nomination under the party's banner. They go out and do the job of winning the seat or winning the Senate race. And then they come back to head office and they vote as they're told to vote. Like the South Australian girl, no doubt she votes as she's told to vote, so she's just a vote. That's all she is. Albo would like to see that one day she grows into an intelligent, capable politician who can be a minister, but there's no particular reason to presume that she will or won't, because the Prime Minister needs good ministers to actually govern the country. But until then...
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm just taking the piss. Bowen, Burka, Wong. I know you like Penny Wong, but I don't think any of these guys are like, maybe they're good politicians, but I don't think they're at all competent to run our country.
Well, I don't think Wong's stupid, and I think that's a plus, even though I think some of her politics are whack. I don't think Burke's stupid, although I think he makes some dumb decisions. I do think Bowen's stupid.
He's the David Lammy.
But what I'm saying is the Prime Minister of the day, whoever that is, wants to be able to choose people that'll toe the line, that'll be supportive of his agenda, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
All things being equal, you'd rather they be more capable than less capable.
Morons. Three Stooges, man.
Yeah.
But can I get back to what you're saying? I think you're right, but I think it's indicative of what's happening to the country and the obvious branch stacking. That One Nation, remember when One Nation had that Indian candidate?
In WA, yep. How did he go, by the way? I don't think he got up.
Well, he couldn't really communicate very well.
Okay.
But, yeah, I think he owned like some petrol stations, and then he was saying that the white people don't work hard and he has to employ, I don't know, mate, it was just like, but clearly Pauline Hanson's looked at that electorate and said, well, if we're going to win this electorate, we need an Indian candidate. So she's decided to back that bloke. I can't see another reason that she'd do it, because she's anti-immigration and she's got a brand new immigrant off the boat who's sort of seems to, if he's owning petrol stations, he can.
Well, see, that's the tension. That's the tension we have, and this is the great challenge for a politician like Pauline Hanson, is to be able to draw a distinction between future immigration and past immigration. And I think that most Australians, and I think you'll agree, Most Australians are fine with immigration. We just don't like mass immigration.
Well, I think at what point do you go, well, we've got to sort of at least slow down a little bit? I think that's the problem.
Yeah, but see, can Pauline Hanson nominate that Indian fellow to run in WA? If he's coming illegally and he's a good guy, that's no problem, because he is not the problem, and any individual is not the problem. It's just the numeric mass which is the problem, and it's very difficult as our society to have that conversation and to sort of put forward that sort of nuance.
It's almost impossible to have the conversation.
Well, the leftards won't let us. They'll call us racist before they'll accept there's nuance there.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether or not you agree with this, but I think I've made the analogy before that if Australia had a policy that, like our current policy, that's non-discriminatory, however, the only people that moved to the country were from Scandinavia.
Okay.
You know, we just had 1 million Swedes, Norwegians, Finns and Danes move to the country.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that would be called out as being racist. I'm pretty sure that people would look at that and go, hang on, why are only white people coming to this country? What's that all about?
Well, it will be called out as being racist, right?
Okay. But when you look at the countries that, what I don't understand with our current immigration system is that all the immigrants that are coming in are from, like, you can call Indians English speaking if you want, but, you know.
Oh, so if you said we're only taking 500,000 Norwegians, you're racist. We're only taking 500,000 Indians, which is what we seem to be doing now. But I don't think that's what we're doing now. I think it's open slather to everybody.
No, it's open. But hang on, we don't have a free trade. We don't. The Premier of Victoria isn't going over to Scandinavia. The Prime Minister's not going over to Scandinavia. He's not creating pathways where he's not even doing it with anyone in the Anglosphere. You know, we could do it with Canada. We could do it with America. We could do it with the UK, and we could have some sort of the EU type scenario where we have an open border system. Anyone that speaks English as a first language and as a skill qualifies as a skilled migrant could freely move within those countries. We're not doing that. Okay, just explain to me why the most skilled people that come to this country are from countries that have a worse, that they send their students to us to study because obviously our education system is better than theirs. Otherwise they wouldn't pay, 3 times the price that a local person pays to get an education. So on one hand, they're more skilled, they're more highly educated. This is the conundrum the confusion I have when you look into the immigration policy. The skilled migrants, the bulk of them are coming from sort of India, Nepal, the Philippines, and I'm not sure where else, maybe China still. But those people are more skilled than people that are educated in Australia. So people that have gone through the educational system in Australia don't have the skills to fill the roles that the current job market has.
Okay.
That appears to be the case. So we need to bring in highly skilled people, more skilled than the locals.
Oh, but okay, but I know you already know this, but the skilled immigration program is just a front. It's Fugazi.
Well, we all know it, but this is the hypocrisy of the whole thing. I don't understand how it operates the way it does.
Well, it's marketed to us, it's sold to us as a skilled immigration program to try and have us sort of on board with it because we need the skills. But the truth is, we don't need more 7-Eleven cashiers and Uber drivers and.
Well, apparently we do. That's the thing. We must, because we're bringing 500,000 of them a year.
No.
But here's my counter argument. Sorry. I just want to sort of try and clarify this point. If Europeans all speak English and most of them speak it at a very high level, without an accent, fully understandable. They are highly educated, they're intelligent, and they're very highly skilled. Okay. So if our goal is to bring in the best and brightest, and I would put Americans in there as well. I'd put Canadians in there as well. There's a number of countries that you could look at where people are highly educated and would integrate immediately into our society seamlessly.
Okay.
Because they have done. We've had cohorts of them from those countries, and that they've integrated seamlessly.
Okay.
Why are we not getting those people? Why are none of those people moving here?
Maybe they don't want to move here.
Well,
it's a market for you. Got to make a pitch to people and say, please move here. And some people say, why the fuck would I move there?
So why is it so enticing?
I'll tell you why it's enticing. If I'm in India, I can grow up in India or I can grow up in Melbourne, Delhi or Melbourne. Like, haven't you spoken to an Uber driver? I spoke to an Uber driver about this. He said, this place is fucking paradise.
Well,
the air's clean.
Well, it is for now. The air's clean for now. The water's clean for now.
But you asked me why he chose to come to Australia.
No. I understand why they want to come here. What I don't understand is why is our focus to bring them and not to focus on anyone else?
No. What I'm saying is the average Norwegian probably doesn't want to come here. And so Albo goes to Norway, and there's a small, 4 million people population.
They don't have many people, that's true. I mean, I'm just using that as an example.
Let's say he goes to Europe and says, please come to Australia, right? 700 million people, please come. They're like, oh, yeah, maybe, okay, and a few takers, right? You go to India, say, please come to Australia. You've got people bashing down your door to get a visa.
Yeah.
Why? Look, because Australia is paradise.
When I lived in the UK and Ireland, and Sweden to a degree, everyone I met had a positive view of Australia, and I think a lot of people would have liked to have moved, and a lot of people said, "Well, look, it's just so hard."
Is it?
Yeah, I have a friend, a very, very, very good friend, whose wife, her wife's father's Australian. He wanted to move here, so he's an asphalter, and his dad owns the biggest asphalting company in London. He's been asphalting his whole life. He loves asphalting, right? And that's a trade that he could utilise in this country.
Yep.
He applied and was rejected for a visa to move to Australia. Now, the one caveat on that is that he applied about 20 years ago. So I don't know if things have changed, but
probably have.
It's pretty strange that, it was so difficult for an English guy with a wife who grew up in Australia, whose father's Australian. She held a British passport. Couldn't move here. Okay. He was knocked back.
But again, that was 20 years ago, as you said, right?
That was 20 years ago, but I'm pretty. 20 years ago, we still had 7-Eleven.
What you're implying is that there's one set of criteria for a subcontinental person and a different set of criteria for an English person.
Well, yeah. I'm querying.
I would be surprised if that was the case. I think they make the same criteria, but I think the people move between nations based on push and pull factors, right? And the pull factor in Australia is clean air, housing, buy a house, job, whatnot, education,
Medicare, free education.
Okay,
they're all the pull factors.
So that for an Indian person, I don't know what the state of public healthcare in India is like, but I'm going to bet that that's significantly better here. So that's a big pull. Whereas in the UK, you've got the NHS, you've got your community, you've got your house, you've got this or the other. And you're like, yeah, the pull is not so strong.
I think you'd find there's a lot of people in the UK right now. There's definitely a lot of Irish people. And we are getting a lot of Irish nurses, for example.
Okay, so they're getting in.
So, yeah, apparently. They're not visible, but yeah.
But the other side of the coin is that there's a lot of labour exploitation of new immigrants, right? Like all the students, the foreign students, are exploited at the wazoo, right? So if you're an English nurse in training or an Indian or Kenyan nurse in training, right? I'm just going to postulate that they both pay the $10,000 visa fee, they both pay the $5,000 a year private school tuition fee, whatever it is, right? It's all the same, except each of them is told you're only allowed to work 20 hours a week during your studies, and they all know that to live, they've got to work more than 20 hours a week or whatever the number is. So they're actually going to work 20 hours on the books and 20 hours off the books. Now, the Kenyan and the Indian are far more readily exploitable because there's cultural sort of norms where, the biggest exploiters of migrant workers are former migrants themselves.
Of course they are.
They know the culture, know the people, and they have a different attitude towards these rules.
I've got first-hand experience with the whole thing. It's an actual network.
Okay.
It's a literal network from the housing, the employment, everything. It's a network, and it's run by, in the situation that I know about, it was run by Chinese, and it was a Malaysian Chinese person who came over.
Okay.
And they were exploited.
Okay.
They were fully exploited.
Yep.
But they were happy to be exploited because
it was a quid pro quo.
Yeah. However, they were in a position, I think they had to pay something like $500 a month to a college. It was during COVID, so they didn't have to study, but they still had to pay the money. So there was a massive surcharge. And then when they were working cash in hand, that person wasn't getting superannuation, they weren't getting annual leave, and they were basically getting a pre-tax wage.
So where they're coming from and where they're arriving, i.e. Australia, they look up the pros and cons of exploitation, the substandard wages, the multiple years of actually doing it tough. And they say, you know what, I'll endure this now because where I'm going to be at the end of it all is in a good place where I want to be. The English nurse says, I need to endure all that shit to get there when I'm actually pretty good here. I'd rather end up in Australia, but I've got to go through that trough of exploitation and endurance to get there. No.
I think another thing is that culturally there isn't that opportunity. There isn't a network. There's not a network of Irish or English or Scottish or Scandinavian or European people that have set up
exploitation systems.
Yeah, a mechanism to exploit people. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, because culturally, the English girl is not willing to be exploited. She's like, that's not my cultural background.
Not willing to, and I think on the other hand, it's not in our culture to exploit people.
Both sides of the coin. But this is why I'm saying the immigration system, I think, sets the same requirements for the subcontinental and the English person, but the subcontinental person is more willing for all those reasons to actually participate and endure it versus the English person. Now, that all makes sense, but there's another layer, and that is, I think the immigration department knows full well that that's the case, and they actually know full well that these people are going to be exploited mercilessly, comes like wencelessly, for 3, 4, 5 years, right? Because that is part of the economic system that they're actually looking to build. And I talk about it like this: the American system has basically no minimum wage or very low, and relies on this pyramid with a bottom strata of cheap, foreign, often illegal workers who are willing to work for $1 a day.
Yeah, without any
$1
insurance.
Yeah. Exactly. No insurance, no job security, no health insurance, all that sort of stuff. They can be fired at a moment's notice, right? But the economy relies on that. It's a wonderful, cheap source of labour that everybody enjoys, right? And I think in the last 20 or 30 years, the Australian government has just quietly said, we need some of that. Because they keep talking about all these skilled immigrants, but really we see that most of them are coming in at the bottom of the pyramid, driving Ubers, Uber Eats, 7-Eleven. Certainly there's some...
Australia Post, driving trucks, which is crazy.
Yeah, so they slowly go up the pyramid. Maybe there's some higher up, but there's so many at the bottom and so many getting exploited. And you look at it, it's like, this isn't by accident, this is by design.
And I think that there's a situation now. I told you where I applied for a job at BP just for a laugh when I got back from overseas.
BP gas station?
Yeah.
Okay.
Literally, I just thought, oh, fuck it, it's easy. I'll just go, hand people chocolate bars.
Oh, your mates would come and buy gas from you.
Yeah. I just thought, oh, well, what the fuck, I need a job. I need a job fast. And I just thought, I saw an ad and I thought, yeah, sure, I'll apply. And I had about, 30 years of customer service experience, like working for really high level fucking companies.
I think you're overqualified.
And I sent my CV in and I got an email back saying, due to the high caliber of applicants, we're unable to consider your application.
Yeah, high caliber of accepted.
So, and then every time I walked into the service station, there was an Indian standing there, and I thought, okay, this is so. My conspiratorial brain thought, oh, do you think maybe this is like some sort of Indian cartel where they only hire their own? Like, could that be possible?
Can I just make a note for the leftards who will be upset with what you just said? The obvious implication of what you said is that Indian student is, so the Indian person is probably an immigrant, probably on a student visa, probably getting exploited, probably breaching his 20 hours a week student work cap and working 40 hours a week and getting paid X dollars under minimum wage per hour, right? That's the implication. And it's 99% probably true. And anybody who says, oh, that's racist, you can't presume that. I've got 2 eyes, I've got 2 fucking ears, I've got a brain, right? Well, and we know the 7-Eleven history from 10 years ago.
I had to go. It's a real life experience. So
I'm just making that point because the great problem in the social discourse on these sort of subject matters is, oh no, you can't say that, you don't know for sure. Yeah, but 90% sure probability, right? We all know how the world works.
Yeah, I would expect to get an interview with my CV for a job at BP.
Do they even interview for those sort of jobs, or say, "Oh yeah, start tomorrow, see you at 9 a.m."
Nah, those days are gone, man. Well, I think what happens is, some bloke has a migrant agent who organises his accommodation and his student, his fake university and his job at 7-Eleven.
It's all part of the same
Yeah,
package.
I think it's all sort of done before they even leave Bombay. I think it's all sorted.
Yeah, and we're talking smack about the system that enables that, but really, from my point of view, it comes straight from Home Affairs, Immigration Department in Canberra. They designed the system to be like this.
Well, and when I did a bit of a deep dive on this, and I was thinking, what's the end? Like, so the reason that we're going through this mass immigration situation is because we have a declining birth rate, and we need to replace the population. That's the story.
Can I pause you on that?
Yeah.
We're at 56 minutes. It sounds like we're about to open up another topic.
Okay.
Should we just cut this now and do that in the next one?
I doubt we're going to release any of this. This is just jiving, just practice.
No, dude, this is good shit. You tell us. Leave a comment. Hit the like button.
I think just anything talking about immigration, I think you're just going to get shouted down as a racist.
Well, there's a way to do it.
You'll probably get flagged by.
Okay.
There's this.
I'm still recording, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good.
Okay, so it's 57 minutes. So we've got 3 minutes. Tell us what you think. About getting flagged as racist.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that the moment that you question immigration or question the skilled migrant visa process or question the student visa process, which I might say needs examination given the occurrence in Bondi, I think that's what's the French for? Is it rigueur? Is it when you're not allowed to say something?
I know the German is verboten. No,
is it verboten?
That's verboten. I think that's German for you can't touch it.
Okay,
it's prohibited.
Well, yeah, it's that's what it is. So it's a sensitive topic, and the reason that Albos and Burka and Wong are able to continue on their merry way is because the moment you even try to question it, you are a Nazi, you're far right, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe.
What shits me is behind closed doors in Canberra, we have a Treasury Department, an Immigration Department, and a Home Affairs Department. Those guys have, behind closed doors, a very detailed analysis of different parts of the world, different peoples in the world, how they're assessed, how they're marketed to come here on skilled visas. So there's a lot of social immigration engineering going on behind closed doors, for sure.
It's no coincidence they're all coming from the subcontinent.
Okay, but there's something going on, right? Yet when anybody says, hey, what's going on? You're a racist. Well, clearly something's going on, and you guys are the left woke tards. You're not being racist, but you're doing some analysis and design of this system and some discernment or discrimination within your system. So just share what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're a racist. No. I'm not saying change it. I'm saying tell me what you're doing.
I think that's kind of my point, is that if 1 million people primarily from the subcontinent come into the country and you question that fact,
Yep.
and it's a fact,
Yep.
you're a racist.
Yep.
But if 1 million people from Britain came in at the exclusion of any other group, ethnic group, you'd be a racist. We'd be 100%. It'd be the White Australia policy again. It'd be completely racist.
So you're allowed to question one, but not the other. You're allowed to question the white British people. Well, that's racist. But
it's kind of like we have to bring them in from the subcontinent so that we're not racist. Is that the angle?
I think we're doing a shit job of actually delicately navigating this subject.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Thanks, Dim Sim Kim.
Thanks, Grey Man Smooth.
Oh.